So you provided an update on global cross-platform measurement today. Can you give us some of the highlights of what you explained, the differences from country to country and continent to continent?
Sure. I think one of the key messages that I wanted to put across is that it's really almost horses for courses. That is to say, we don't have a cookie cutter approach to how we do cross-platform audience measurement. We need to work and take account of the local market scenarios. So one of the biggest fundamental differences between the United States and, say, a market like the UK is that we work with what's called a joint industry committee. A joint industry committee, or a JIC, is usually a tripartite organization that represents the buyers and the sellers in the market. And what they typically do is define a measurement that we then, as a research supplier, have to work within those constraints and supply a service to them. In the United States, you have a proprietary model, so I can build a model, I can go out and I can start delivering data to clients. There is an accreditation system, such as the MRC, and where we have products in the United States, we go through MRC accreditation. And I think if you look at what's happening, I mean, things are moving at different speeds in different parts of the world. If you take a market like the Netherlands, the Netherlands is probably, I would argue, and I'm sitting in New Amsterdam, talking about Old Amsterdam. The Dutch market have been the first market to really bring together what we call total video. And what I mean by total video is they're capturing the audience across television and online, across multiple devices, and have created a unified currency across TV and digital. Very interesting. A lot of the world outside of the Netherlands is looking at that to see what happens as a result of those metrics. Has there been any kind of systemic shift of dollars in any different direction? Thus far, we've not seen anything dramatic. And perhaps that's quite interesting when you come to other markets where people are asking themselves this question about, can we bring together the TV and the digital measurement? In this market, we have a relationship with Comscore. We have a minority interest in Comscore, and they're our partner, incidentally, globally. So around the world, we've been building cross-platform measurement solutions. I mentioned Holland. We're also doing that in Spain, in Brazil, and in the UK. In this market, we have not as yet been particularly aggressive in terms of our work with them. We do supply information around television ad occurrences that allows them to drive the legacy Rentrack set-top box audience measurement. But we're interested, and as I mentioned in my presentation, Comscore is investing in terms of its capabilities and technologies. It's certainly investing in Europe as it's building out a European data center, but I think also you'll potentially see some significant investment in the US market over the next 12 months. I can't go into specifics at this point, but suffice to say, Rentrack and Comscore, those businesses, need to move forward and need to invest in the US market.
So is it correct then to say that certain countries are ahead of the United States?
Sitting in the United States, trying to answer that question, it's very interesting because you have the industry structures are quite different, and the evolution of the businesses have been quite different. I mean, I've been working in the United States on and off for 15 to 20 years. And, you have a system here where you have one or two very large suppliers who control the measurement solution. In other countries, it's more fragmented. You don't have that same degree, perhaps, of inertia in terms of the way things operate. So if you look at markets like Holland has always been aggressive. Netherlands has always been aggressive in audience measurement. First country in the world to go to a 100% digital print measurement. Now, they then came back from that because the metrics didn't quite work out as they'd anticipated. But, you also have to look at money at risk. So the money at risk in the United States in terms of scale versus a market like the Netherlands, I'm guessing, I don't know any facts around this, would be DMA number 97 in the US. It's not quite the same. So there is that that perhaps sometimes holds back because the money at risk is so high. But it also surprises people. I talked today in the presentation about real-time ratings. In Latin America, for the last 15 years, we've been offering real-time ratings. So our clients in Latin America receive audience share and the ratings delivered within 1 minute of the content going out. Now, used primarily for programming and schedule lineups, but we're now beginning to get requests from other countries saying, can we look at that from an advertising perspective? And perhaps that's something to do with the way that digital and the expectations around digital are being applied across more media.
So, where are we on fusion versus single source?
Okay.
Well, let's take this country, just for starters.
So, I think you'll see in this country both. I think you'll see both fusion and single source. The reason I gave you a wry smile at the beginning of that question is because I first came to the US about 15 years ago and started to talk about the work that in Europe we'd done with data fusion. That is to say, having two disparate data sets that we can model and bring together. I was pretty much drummed out of the United States as being a heretic. 15 years have passed, and now most people understand what fusion is. And it's a widely accepted way of bringing disparate data sets together. The issue is really, again, about money and funding. Fusion is a relatively low-cost modeling technique that allows you to bring things together. Single source requires the installation and the management, typically in this context, of an active panel where you're measuring both television and digital with the appropriate technology in the same household with the same respondents. That is a somewhat more significant investment. So again, going back to my comments about horses for courses, different markets will take a different approach. UK, for example, is in the process of working through what's called Dovetail 2. So Barb is now bringing its online player data together with the People Meter panel data and creating person by person single source data around online and the regular or the standard delivery through television sets.
So last question, what was the more interesting, if you could pick one or two things that you heard here today, what sticks with you?
I think for me, one of the interesting things is that two or three people on the session when we had the networks up there with Lyle moderating and Kate Sirkin from Publicis on the panel was, can we agree some metrics? And I think, you know, that's part of the problem. People often talk about the UK and the US divided by a common language. The trouble is the language between digital and TV is not the same, and there's a kind of mismatch here. We have to start defining metrics which are universally accepted that bring together those two disparate media, which people, in most cases, you probably consume digital and television, me the same. How can we find a way to unify those through a common metric? And that requires compromise, it requires bravery, and it may require investment in order to get there.